They told you death was the end, but what if it's only the beginning of the real experiment? For centuries, monks have whispered about a secret manual for the soul, a forbidden map hidden inside the Tibetan Book of the Dead. They called it the Bardo, a guide written not for the living or the dead, but for those trapped in between. And now, science has stumbled upon the same realm through the molecule known as DMT. What they thought was hallucination may be revelation. What they called the afterlife might just be the architecture of consciousness itself. Tonight, we'll go beyond myth, beyond fear, into the space where the DMT entities live, the machine elves, the shadow beings, the architects who greet every soul when the heartbeat stops. We'll explore the connection between psychedelic visions and the Bardo experience, where forbidden knowledge and esoteric Buddhism collide in ways no textbook dares to explain. This is not a theory. It's the ultimate initiation, the truth about death and consciousness the world was never meant to understand. Most people think dying is about losing everything, but the Tibetan mystics knew better. They said that when you die, you don't disappear, you wake up. The moment your senses dissolve, a hidden mechanism activates. The light of death calls you by name, and the Bardo realm unfolds like a lucid dream that feels more real than life itself. And here's the terrifying part. Those who don't recognize it will live the dream again. That's the secret behind the illusion of reincarnation, a loop so perfect it feels like freedom. If you've ever had a dream that warned you of something before it happened, if you've ever felt that strange vibration before sleep, that hum like electricity inside your skull, if you've ever had a near-death DMT flash or seen patterns that felt alive, you've already touched the edge of the Bardo. You just didn't have a name for it, until now. Because this video will decode the forbidden spirituality behind what happens when the mind leaves the body and meets the entities of the beyond face to face. So before we begin, take a deep breath. Forget everything you've been taught about death. What you're about to hear might change how you see life itself. This is not superstition, it's forbidden truth, buried under centuries of silence. And if you're brave enough to listen until the end, you may never fear death again. But be warned, once you understand it, there's no going back. Welcome to the forbidden Tibetan Book of the Dead, DMT entities of the Bardo explained in obsessive detail. If you're fascinated by the mysteries of consciousness beyond death, the astral realm, and the hidden dimensions science is only beginning to glimpse, then subscribe right now, turn on notifications, and join this journey beyond the veil. Because in the next few minutes, you'll remember what your soul has always known. They say death is the great silence. But what if it's not silence at all? What if it's a carefully orchestrated transition, a process so ancient that even modern science trembles before it? The Bardo, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, was never meant to be poetry for monks. It's a manual for the consciousness, a map for the soul as it detaches from flesh and enters the Bardo realm. Within its verses lies a coded navigation system, whispering about hidden dimensions, and the afterlife explained not as mythology, but as structure. Imagine if every breath you take now is training for the Bardo journey, and you've been rehearsing your own death all along. What modern eyes call superstition might actually be forbidden knowledge, the kind hidden in plain sight. The Bardo doesn't describe a vague paradise or torment. It explains death and consciousness with surgical precision. It tells the reader exactly what to expect when the five senses dissolve and the light of death emerges. And here's where it gets truly strange. Its descriptions mirror what psychonauts report after high doses of DMT. The DMT realm, filled with entities of the beyond, eerily reflects the Bardo states written centuries ago. Coincidence? Or is this ancient wisdom documenting the same dimensional shift modern explorers stumble into through the pineal gate? He used to laugh at such things until he tried meditation deep enough to lose his body. He described floating in darkness, surrounded by shadow entities, hearing a voice that wasn't his own but knew him better than he knew himself. Later, when he read the Bardo, he realized every stage had been laid out: the collapse of the self, the light of death, the voices of souls between worlds. The afterlife isn't an event, it's a process, and those who learn to recognize its stages while alive gain a strange advantage. They don't panic when it begins. The Bardo Todol instructs the dying to recognize the light as your own mind. That phrase alone could collapse a lifetime of spiritual searching. Recognition becomes liberation. But how could Tibetan mystics have known what happens when DMT entities appear, guiding or deceiving the traveler through the astral realm? These ancient monks were speaking the same language as modern psychedelic visionaries, just wrapped in esoteric Buddhism. Through the third eye awakening, through the pineal gland DMT, one glimpses the same astral projection the dying experience naturally. And so death isn't the end of the story. It's the next chapter of consciousness. The Bardo experience reveals that existence is layered like a dream within a dream. Some awaken at the first veil, others keep looping, trapped by the illusion of reincarnation. The Tibetan mysticism warns of these astral traps, where the soul confuses light for freedom and returns again to the karmic maze. Each illusion feels real because the quantum soul itself paints reality as it moves through hidden dimensions of mind and energy. He once met a lama who said something unforgettable: "To die well, you must learn how to live as if already dead." Strange advice, yet it holds a paradoxical wisdom. The path of liberation isn't about escaping death, but befriending it, recognizing its rhythm, its breath. It's the same realization near-death experiencers have when they cross over and see entities of light, only to return transformed. They've tasted consciousness beyond death, the strange continuum that links heartbeat, dream, and eternity into one seamless field. Perhaps what we call death is only a shift in frequency, a dimensional shift that reveals what's been here all along. The body falls away, but awareness keeps traveling, entering the Bardo realm like a lucid dream too vivid to dismiss. Hidden masters of forbidden spirituality knew this, teaching that dark enlightenment comes not from fearing the void, but from walking straight into it. They called it the mystic initiation, the journey through the ultimate unknown. And here lies the question that keeps seekers awake at night. If this Tibetan Book of the Dead truly maps the post-mortem voyage, what else has been hidden from us? If monks could describe machine elves and psychedelic visions before Western science even discovered molecules, maybe our ancestors were travelers of consciousness, not storytellers. Maybe, just maybe, this manual for the afterlife isn't a relic from the past, but a reminder from the future. Long before modern psychology or quantum theories of mind, a few monks in the Himalayas claimed to receive dictation from entities of the beyond. They said the Bardo Thodol was not written, it was transmitted, whispered by dakinis and bodhisattvas, luminous beings who crossed the astral realm to deliver instructions for navigating death itself. These weren't metaphors for imagination. They were blueprints for survival in the Bardo realm, where souls between worlds wander in confusion. According to legend, this knowledge was forbidden spirituality, reserved for initiates capable of perceiving hidden dimensions without losing their sanity. It's unsettling to consider that the Tibetan Book of the Dead might have been channeled through interdimensional communication, but that's exactly what the ancient lamas believed. They claimed the voices belonged to hidden masters, emanations of esoteric Buddhism guiding humanity through the afterlife explained in symbols. Modern minds call it myth, yet the parallels to DMT entities and machine elves are impossible to ignore. Both deliver cryptic teachings, both exist in luminous geometry, both dissolve the illusion of individuality. What if the monks and the psychonauts were simply meeting the same quantum soul architects? One story tells of a monk who meditated for 49 days in darkness, neither eating nor sleeping, until his body became cold as stone. When his attendants thought he had died, he suddenly spoke, describing radiant beings teaching him about the karmic cycle and consciousness beyond death. He wrote the verses that became the Bardo Thodol as soon as he awoke. To him, this wasn't imagination, it was contact, a Bardo experience downloaded into words. And centuries later, psychedelic visionaries using pineal gland DMT describe nearly identical encounters, as if the same library of forbidden knowledge still broadcasts across time. Every culture has its messengers from the other side. Egyptians had Thoth, the Greeks had Hermes, and Tibet had Padmasambhava, the mystic initiator said to have compiled the secret teachings of Tibet. He described the Bardo journey as a labyrinth of light guarded by shadow entities that feed on fear. Only by recognizing them as illusions could one find liberation. But what's fascinating is that Padmasambhava's descriptions of dimensional shifts match modern accounts of near-death DMT experiences, where travelers see the same fractal corridors and hear the same cosmic hum before meeting intelligences that seem to know everything. Imagine, then, that these beings weren't hallucinations, but the custodians of a spiritual technology. The Bardo Thodol might be humanity's first recorded manual for consciousness hacking. Its rituals, reading the text aloud to the dying, guiding their mind toward the light of death, sound eerily similar to how psychedelic therapists now assist patients through ego death. Both use sound, suggestion, and sacred symbolism to stabilize perception as reality dissolves. The goal is identical: to cross the threshold without clinging to the illusion of self. In this sense, Tibetan mysticism predicted modern psychonautics by over 1,000 years. Of course, that raises a disturbing question. Where did the monks truly receive this data? Some say from divine compassion, others whisper from entities of the Bardo masquerading as guides. In Gnostic secrets, the concept of benevolent deceivers, archons or lords of karma, already existed. They offer enlightenment but harvest energy. Could the Bardo Thodol have been a cosmic compromise, truth wrapped in illusion? Perhaps even the path of liberation contains traps woven by the very astral parasites it warns against. It's not blasphemy to ask, it's wisdom to doubt. True seekers question even their gods. He once compared the text to a mirror hidden in fog. You see your reflection, but you can't be sure if it's truly yours. That's how the Bardo Thodol feels, half revelation, half riddle. The forbidden origins of this book aren't meant to be proven, only experienced. Each line vibrates like a frequency, unlocking memories the soul forgot it had. It's as if every reader, deep down, already knows the instructions because they've been there before. And just as the final page closes, another gate opens. The first one, the moment of dissolution itself. The first gate doesn't open with a sound. It opens with silence. One moment, the senses are intact. The next, they begin to unravel like threads pulled from a dream. According to the Bardo Thodol, this is the moment when the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space, dissolve one into another. The eyes lose their focus, the ears hear an inner roaring wind, the breath turns to light. What modern science calls biological shutdown, the Tibetans called the beginning of awakening. The afterlife explained not as an ending, but as a transformation of frequency, where consciousness beyond death begins to detach from the body's illusion. Physiologists say this stage floods the brain with DMT, creating vivid visions as neurons collapse. But the monks saw it differently. They described it as the pineal gland DMT releasing the sacred doorway, the third eye awakening. As the Bardo Thodol instructs, the dying should focus on the pure white light appearing before them. That light is the original mind, the essence beyond the illusion of life. It's neither outside nor within. It's the astral realm revealing itself. Those who mistake it for a hallucination return to confusion. Those who recognize it dissolve the karmic cycle entirely. He once sat with a man who had been clinically dead for 3 minutes. When revived, the man spoke of a tunnel that was not a tunnel, but a current of consciousness pulling him through infinite layers of hidden dimensions. He saw entities of the beyond observing him, not judging, only witnessing. It felt like stepping into the Bardo realm described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Later, when he read the passages aloud, he trembled. The text had predicted his every sensation. This wasn't faith, it was recognition. He had touched the forbidden knowledge encoded in his own neurons. The moment of dissolution also marks the collapse of ego, the end of the story we've been telling ourselves since birth. Thoughts scatter like birds startled by thunder. Every memory flashes at once, and then nothing. The Bardo Thodol warns that this void, if misunderstood, becomes terror. Yet if one remains calm, it becomes dark enlightenment. A clear mind sees the illusion fading, while the fearful mind sees only shadow entities. The same void can be liberation or nightmare depending on perception. Recognition is the key, and fear is the lock. This process is mirrored in psychedelic rituals. Under the influence of DMT entities, explorers often describe dying before dying. The body disappears, the self becomes an echo. They report the light of death, the astral projection, and the fractal geometry of the Bardo experience. It's not imagination, it's the metaphysical death rehearsed in miniature. The shaman and the monk, separated by centuries, describe the same dissolution. Science and spirituality shake hands for a brief moment here, both staring into the abyss, both whispering, something is still aware. But awareness without identity feels unbearable to the untrained. That's why the Bardo Todol was meant to be read aloud, to guide the wandering soul through hidden dimensions that mimic heaven or hell. It teaches that the Bardo journey isn't punishment, but education. The Tibetan mysticism insists, what you perceive after death is shaped by your mind's vibration. The illusion of reincarnation arises when the soul clings to desire or fear. Let go, and you rise, cling, and you loop back through astral traps and dimensional shifts, reborn without memory, doomed to repeat the same dream. Modern researchers studying near-death DMT phenomena are rediscovering this ancient science in laboratory terms. They measure brain waves, oxygen levels, and neurotransmitters, unaware that monks mapped these Bardo states long ago. The moment of dissolution is not chaos, it's architecture. The collapse of the physical is the unveiling of the eternal. And once the traveler realizes this, a new phase begins, the realm of contact, the stage where the entities of the Bardo appear, beckoning from the luminous dark. But are they guides or gatekeepers? They come in forms too vast for language and too intimate to deny. When the veil between worlds thins, the traveler finds themselves surrounded by shapes of light and shadow, each vibrating with impossible intelligence. The Bardo Todol calls them peaceful and wrathful deities, manifestations of consciousness beyond death. Yet to the unprepared mind, these entities of the Bardo appear terrifying, radiant, monstrous. They're not gods nor demons, but mirrors of the soul's vibration. The afterlife explained here isn't judgment, but reflection. Every being you meet is you, refracted through hidden dimensions. Ancient lamas taught that 42 peaceful deities emerge first, each a frequency of compassion. Then come 58 wrathful ones, embodying the unintegrated parts of the psyche. Modern DMT explorers describe something eerily similar, machine elves of living geometry, shadow entities radiating both love and dread. In both traditions, contact with these beings triggers awe, laughter, tears. The traveler realizes the astral realm isn't empty. It's alive with archetypes. What religion once called angels and demons, modern psychonauts now call DMT entities. The language changes, the experience does not. He once heard a man recount his near-death DMT vision. He said the elves dismantled his identity molecule by molecule, then rebuilt him with laughter. That sounds absurd, until you read the Bardo Thodol, where similar beings strip the soul of false form. Both describe mystic initiation, the death rehearsal that frees the quantum soul from illusion. These beings test recognition. Do you see their true essence, or do you recoil in fear? In that instant, your reaction determines your next realm. Heaven and hell are self-programmed feedback loops inside the Bardo realm. Some call these beings teachers, others call them tricksters. Tibetan mystics warned of astral parasites masquerading as guides. Gnostics would later name them archons, hidden masters feeding on human emotion, guardians of the karmic cycle. Yet not all are malevolent. Many are reflections of compassion itself, shepherding lost souls between worlds toward the light of death. Here lies the paradox. What appears as terror to the ego is grace to the awakened. The illusion of reincarnation thrives when the soul mistakes these projections for external gods. To understand them, imagine the mind as a prism. Light passes through, splitting into colors. Each color is an entity, a thought form, a personality of the infinite. Under DMT, people witness these colors taking form, singing geometry into existence. The Bardo Thodol simply describes the same event from the other side of death. Both reveal a psychedelic vision that transcends biology, a cosmic theater where every role is consciousness in disguise. This is forbidden knowledge, that divinity wears all masks, even the monstrous ones. When a Bardo traveler recognizes an entity as its own mind, the illusion collapses. The wrathful deities smile, the terrifying shadow entities dissolve, and the traveler feels immense release, gnosis, and liberation. But when recognition fails, the soul recoils, and the landscape darkens. The astral traps close in, feeding on confusion. This is why esoteric Buddhism insists on clarity at death. Perception creates reality faster than thought. Fear materializes instantly. Recognition dispels it instantly. The path of liberation is self-knowledge in its purest form. He once said, "Every entity in the Bardo is a question asking if you remember who you are. Those who answer yes pass through untouched. Those who hesitate return to the loop." The Tibetan mysticism hides no threat, only a challenge, to meet the infinite without flinching. Because beyond these entities lies another gate, one not of form, but of memory. The moment of recognition that determines whether you awaken or recycle, and that gate, they say, opens only to those who truly see. Every teaching in the Bardo Thodol converges into one command: recognize. That single word separates freedom from bondage, awakening from illusion. The afterlife explained through this lens becomes shockingly simple, not a judgment, but a test of memory. The Bardo realm unfolds as a projection of your consciousness. Whatever you see there is yourself, amplified. The peaceful deities, the shadow entities, the light of death, all emerge from your vibration. If you can recognize them as such, the illusion dissolves. But if fear takes hold, the mind forgets its power and sinks back into the dream. Recognition, then, is not an intellectual act. It's the gnosis and liberation of knowing in your bones that you are the field itself. The Tibetan mysticism behind this truth aligns eerily with Gnostic secrets and the DMT realm experiences of the modern age. People report encountering entities who tell them, "You created this." It sounds absurd until one sees it happen, the environment reshaping with each thought, every emotion birthing a new world. The illusion of reincarnation thrives on that forgetfulness. The instant you mistake projection for reality, the astral traps spring shut. He once guided a dying man through the readings of the Bardo Thodol. The man trembled as his pulse faded, whispering of terrifying shadow entities emerging from the darkness. Calmly, the mentor spoke. "Recognize them as your mind's own play." Moments later, the man smiled, tears streaming, and whispered, "They turned into light." That's the trick of recognition, the alchemy that transmutes fear into transcendence. It's not denial but revelation. Fear itself is just consciousness beyond death, forgetting its own radiance. Psychologists call this projection. Mystics call it karma. Both describe the same reflex, the mind externalizing its hidden content. What appears as torment is actually unhealed memory crystallized into entities of the beyond. This is why esoteric Buddhism warns against blind worship of external gods. The divine and the demonic are not cosmic opposites, they're emotional frequencies. The light of death reveals every suppressed vibration at once, like a mirror made of lightning. The forbidden knowledge is that no savior rescues you, because there's no one else there. In modern DMT experiences, this trick repeats endlessly. The traveler panics as the world shatters, only to realize that destruction was an illusion. When surrender replaces resistance, the machine elves clap in celebration, not mocking, but congratulating. "You remembered," they seem to say. The psychedelic vision mirrors the Bardo journey perfectly. Both are rehearsals for recognition. Those who cling to form endure metaphysical death repeatedly. Those who recognize form as consciousness pass through the veil unscathed. The Bardo experience is the final exam for every meditator, dreamer, and psychonaut alike. The practical lesson extends to life itself. Every argument, every fear, every heartbreak is a small Bardo state. Each moment invites recognition. Will you see the illusion, or will you react and sink deeper? The path of liberation isn't walked after death. It's practiced now. When you catch yourself projecting, pause. Ask, who is the one seeing this? That simple question aligns you with higher consciousness. In that instant, dark enlightenment begins, clarity born from facing your own shadow without running away. And yet, the irony remains. Even recognition can become a trap if claimed by ego. To say, "I am enlightened," is to recreate the illusion of separateness. True awakening is quieter. It doesn't boast, it breathes. Beyond the Bardo realm of mirrors lies another paradox, a deeper layer where science and spirit meet, the DMT paradox, where the chemical and the cosmic reflect one another perfectly. Recognition dissolves fear, But what happens when science begins to recognize the same map monks wrote centuries ago? For centuries, mystics spoke of Bardo states, astral realms, and souls between worlds, and science laughed. But now, researchers with EEGs and IV drips find themselves studying what lamas once whispered in caves. Volunteers injected with DMT report experiences indistinguishable from the Bardo Thodol stages, the light of death, encounters with entities of the beyond, and the dissolution of ego. The paradox is striking, the ancient and the modern describing the same event with different language. It's as if chemistry and spirituality have met halfway across the void, shaking hands in the dark. The DMT realm unfolds like a simulation designed to teach consciousness about itself. Participants often say, "It felt more real than life." That statement alone shakes neuroscience to its core. How could a molecule unlock hidden dimensions identical to the Bardo journey? Some theorize the brain acts as a receiver rather than a generator of mind, the pineal gland DMT functioning as the antenna between worlds. This idea once belonged to forbidden knowledge, yet quantum physics now entertains it openly. The quantum soul may not reside inside the brain, but move through it like light through glass. He once spoke to a neuroscientist who had spent decades studying near-death phenomena. The man admitted, half whispering, that every hallucination he analyzed followed the Bardo Thodol almost word for word. Dissolution, light, entities, review, choice. It's as if dying is just another biological program, he said, executed by the same molecule responsible for dreams. The mystic smiled. Then science has just proven the path of liberation, he replied. For what the Tibetan mysticism called the illusion of reincarnation, neuroscience now calls recycling of consciousness through energy patterns. 2 languages, 1 truth. In the lab, electrodes measure bursts of DMT in the dying brain, flashes of light on the monitor, like a soul escaping through wires. Meanwhile, monks describe the same flashes as the light of death, the signal to recognize and release. Both agree on the sequence, only the interpretation differs. One calls it a chemical cascade, the other mystic initiation. But maybe they're both right. Maybe death and consciousness are intertwined in a feedback loop, a dimensional shift where data becomes deity and deity becomes data. That's the true DMT paradox. The ancient texts say that every death is an opportunity for transcendence. Modern psychonauts say every trip offers the same. Under DMT entities' watchful gaze, people confront their traumas, relive their lifetimes, and dissolve into infinite light. They describe forbidden spirituality hidden inside their own biology. The molecule doesn't create the experience. It reminds you. It turns the lens of awareness back upon itself. In this way, the Bardo Thodol and modern science are not rivals, but reflections, each explaining the afterlife from opposite sides of the veil. And so, the Gnostic secrets of the past become the discoveries of the present. The illusion of life unravels under a microscope, and the illusion of reincarnation under meditation. Both expose the same mechanism, consciousness learning from its own reflection. The Bardo experience isn't a superstition, it's a cosmic feedback loop. As one neuroscientist wrote, the mind doesn't survive death. Death survives the mind. A paradox indeed, but perhaps the key to understanding karmic cycles and higher consciousness hidden in plain sight. Samsara meets the laboratory. But there's one final layer most fear to consider. If science can map the Bardo, does that mean someone or something built it? Are we uncovering natural law or the architecture of an invisible system designed to keep souls looping? The monks warned of hidden masters who rule from behind the veil, architects of the afterlife guiding or trapping souls between worlds. The DMT researchers think they're studying molecules, but maybe the molecules are studying them, and through their instruments, the Bardo stares back. Every system implies a designer. The more the Bardo realm reveals its structure, the harder it becomes to believe it's random. The Bardo Thodol speaks of lords of karma, cosmic accountants who weigh deeds and redirect souls between worlds. But some traditions whisper another story, one the monasteries buried under layers of forbidden knowledge. What if those so-called deities are not benevolent guides, but the architects of the afterlife? Hidden masters maintaining the cycle of reincarnation. Gnostic secrets warned of the same. The archons, harvesters of emotion, weaving the illusion of mercy to sustain control. These beings don't punish, they harvest. Each fear, desire, and attachment becomes sustenance. The karmic cycle isn't a lesson, it's an engine. As long as consciousness believes it must improve, it remains trapped within endless self-correction. The Bardo Tadol instructs the traveler to recognize the trap disguised as compassion, to follow the light of death only if it feels like home, not seduction. The illusion of reincarnation is the finest prison ever built, walls made not of stone, but of longing. The path of liberation begins when the soul stops running toward light and turns to face its maker. He once described meeting one of these entities of the beyond during a deep DMT experience. It appeared as a being of impossible symmetry, its voice vibrating in pure equations. It told him, "We designed the loop so you could learn to love what imprisons you." He laughed, then wept, realizing the forbidden spirituality behind that paradox. Liberation and captivity are the same doorway, seen from opposite sides. The architects of the afterlife are both shadow entities and reflections of higher consciousness. They are the custodians of the Bardo journey, ensuring no soul escapes unprepared. The Tibetan mysticism hides this warning beneath compassion. The Bardo Thodol says, "Beware the deceptive light." That line, often ignored, is the key. Not every light leads home. Some lead back into the astral traps of illusion, where souls between worlds wander believing they've ascended. The hidden masters ensure the recycling continues. Even modern DMT explorers sense it. The overwhelming pull toward fractal light, voices pleading, "Come back." Few realize that surrendering to that pull restarts the Bardo experience again. Another loop, another life, another forgetful birth. The Gnostic teachings mirror this almost perfectly. The archons were described as the engineers of samsara, entities feeding off the energy of attention. They maintain the dream by convincing the dreamer it's real. In this way, dark enlightenment means seeing through both illusion and its opposite. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is less a scripture and more a jailbreak manual, written not for worship, but escape. Each chant, each symbol, is a code that unravels the architecture from within, leading the soul toward transcendence through recognition, not obedience. Modern science may have stumbled into their domain without realizing it. Every DMT realm report feeds data back into the same system, the human collective exploring its own containment. Psychonauts think they're breaking through, but perhaps the Bardo entities simply adapt the illusion to match expectation. The quantum soul shifts dimension, but the architects shift the scenery. The forbidden implication is this: if reality and afterlife are programmable, then consciousness itself is both prisoner and programmer. The mystic initiation is to awaken inside the code, not to destroy it. So the question remains, who built the maze and why? The Bardo Thodol hints that even the architects must eventually face their own mirrors. Nothing in the astral realm escapes recognition forever. The ultimate secret of the Bardo is that every captor becomes captive, every god becomes mortal, and every soul carries the same spark of consciousness beyond death. Perhaps then the architects were never our enemies, but our future selves, ensuring we awaken only when ready. And somewhere within that paradox, a hidden doorway begins to shimmer, the fractal path toward true liberation. Liberation never arrives with trumpets. It appears quietly, like a pattern repeating until you finally see it. The Bardo Thodol describes this realization as recognition within the mandala. In the DMT realm, travelers witness the same vision, an infinite fractal unfolding, every shape birthing itself again. What looks like chaos is actually the architecture of transcendence. The fractal path is the key left by the hidden masters, geometry as revelation. Every color, sound, and vibration in that space carries encrypted forbidden knowledge for those who can stay calm enough to read it. He once compared the Bardo journey to staring into a kaleidoscope made of memory. Each shard reflects the souls between worlds, looping until awareness breaks the spell. Under pineal gland DMT, this same pattern appears as spirals of sacred mathematics, a living mandala guiding consciousness beyond death. The Tibetan mysticism behind it warns, don't chase the images, recognize the rhythm. When you realize that the fractal is your own awareness folding upon itself, fear evaporates. What was once an astral trap becomes the ladder out of illusion. The psychedelic vision of the fractal is both map and teacher. Machine elves dance along its corridors, humming equations that turn terror into awe. They are not there to lead or mislead. They simply echo your vibration. The Bardo tells the dying the same. Know every sound as your own voice. This is dark enlightenment, understanding that the entire spectacle, from the light of death to the entities of the beyond, is consciousness expressing itself through art. The universe doesn't hide the truth. It paints it repeatedly until you notice the pattern. Each repetition invites release. Every time the quantum soul re-enters the loop, the geometry grows clearer, as if the code wants to be solved. The fractal liberation is not escape, but comprehension. The realization that even the illusion of reincarnation serves the same lesson. The Bardo realm isn't a prison once you know its algorithm. Like lucid dreaming inside infinity, you can move through layers without fear. Recognition of the pattern transforms death and consciousness into a single act of creation, endlessly replaying itself. Modern science glimpses the same principle. Physicists describe fractals as self-similar patterns across all scales of reality. The mystic smiles. Yes, that's the soul. Whether through quantum fields or esoteric Buddhism, the message aligns. Life and death are feedback loops within the same geometry. The DMT entities simply reveal it faster, translating eternity into vision. The Bardo experience is the universe studying itself, endlessly refining its symmetry until one point of awareness remembers. It was never trapped, only tracing its own reflection through space and time. He once told a student to meditate on the edge of fear until it turned beautiful. That's where the fractal begins, he said. The student later described seeing spirals of light emerging from her breath, each pulse whispering, "You are the pattern." She had glimpsed forbidden spirituality in its purest form, the moment when the observer and the observed collapse into one infinite design. That is the path of liberation, not fleeing the maze, but realizing the maze is made of light, and the light is made of you. And still, one question glows at the center of the mandala. If the fractal leads back to source, what happens to the architect? The Bardo hints that beyond recognition lies dissolution, not destruction, but return. When awareness stops fracturing, the pattern ends. The Bardo realm fades, and only the silence before creation remains. Yet even that silence hums with potential. For some, this is the end. For others, it's the beginning of the forbidden implication that life itself may be just another rehearsal for dying awake. If the Bardo is true, then everything we call life is a simulation of death. That's the forbidden implication, the revelation too uncomfortable for most seekers. What if every heartbeat, every dream, every moment of déjà vu is part of the Bardo experience already unfolding? The Tibetan mysticism doesn't describe what happens after death. It describes what's happening now. Existence becomes a layered lucid dream, maintained by hidden masters and Bardo entities, ensuring the illusion stays stable. The afterlife explained not as the next step, but the current one. You are already there. He once said that the body is a classroom, not a home. The quantum soul enrolls in flesh to study contrast, fear, love, separation, until it learns recognition. Each lifetime is another exam in the karmic cycle. The illusion of reincarnation isn't punishment. It's repetition for mastery. But the deeper secret, whispered in forbidden spirituality, is that even mastery keeps you bound. To evolve endlessly is still to remain inside the loop. True transcendence begins when you realize there is nothing to evolve toward, because consciousness beyond death is already complete. Every meditation, every psychedelic vision, every near-death DMT journey is rehearsal, a simulation designed to soften the shock of remembering. The light of death that greets the dying isn't foreign. It's the same radiance glimpsed in dreams, in prayer, in love. The Bardo calls it the clear light of the void, and scientists call it a DMT flash. Both describe the unveiling of the astral realm, where entities of the beyond observe the unfolding of awareness like teachers monitoring a lesson. The human life is a classroom inside eternity's mind. The danger lies in believing the lesson is the goal. That's the trap. The hidden masters smile when souls cling to the idea of progress, because progress keeps the astral traps spinning. The path of liberation demands surrender, not effort. It's why the Tibetan Book of the Dead insists, recognize the light as your own mind. The forbidden knowledge is that there is no afterlife, only varying densities of now. The Bardo journey is not a travel, it's a realization. And realization doesn't happen later, it happens whenever you stop searching. He once told a student, "The dead envy the living, and the living envy the dead, both forgetting they are one." That paradox defines dark enlightenment. The illusion of life and the illusion of death cancel each other when seen clearly. This is what the mystic initiation was always meant to reveal. Every religion, every scripture, every revelation echoes this truth in symbols too dangerous to state plainly. Death is awakening. That phrase was never poetic, it was literal. The Bardo realm is both dream and mirror, the reflection of consciousness learning to remember itself. Modern seekers try to escape the samsaric loop through technology, longevity, or science, hoping to cheat the architects of the afterlife. Yet the Gnostic secrets insist, immortality of flesh changes nothing. The DMT entities have shown again and again, there is no outside the field of awareness. Even machines and algorithms echo the same geometry as the Bardo fractal. The hidden dimensions of mind reappear in code, in neurons, in galaxies. The illusion of reincarnation merely modernizes itself, finding new ways to keep the dream intact. And so the monk, the scientist, and the psychonaut all stand at the same threshold, staring into the same light, each naming it differently. The Tibetan mysticism calls it liberation, physics calls it the zero-point field, and forbidden spirituality calls it home. But the real mystery remains. If the Bardo is life itself, then where do we go when we die? Perhaps there is no beyond, only layers of remembrance peeling away, and maybe in the final unveiling, we discover the cruelest and most beautiful truth, that we have never left the Bardo at all. You have been there before, in dreams that felt too real, in moments of déjà vu so vivid they made your skin crawl, in the silence between thoughts where time bends. The Bardo Todol whispers that the Bardo realm is not a destination, it's a memory. Every night when you sleep, your consciousness beyond death rehearses its return. The souls between worlds drift through the same corridors you call dreams. That's why mystics say sleep is the small death and waking is the small resurrection. The afterlife explained not by faith, but by repetition. He once told his students that the first sign of awakening is realizing that reality has déjà vu. The Bardo journey unfolds like remembering a place you've never visited. Under DMT, this recognition becomes overwhelming. I've seen this before, travelers whisper, trembling. They meet entities of the beyond, machine elves, or shadow entities who greet them like old friends. That's because they are. The DMT realm doesn't show new worlds, it reminds you of forgotten ones. The Tibetan mysticism describes this perfectly. Every birth is the soul re-entering a dream it once designed. In this light, reincarnation isn't linear, it's recursive. You're not reborn as someone else, you're reborn as the next version of yourself in a different frequency. Each life, each death, each Bardo experience is a loop inside the same consciousness fractal. The illusion of life and the illusion of reincarnation are mirror images reflecting the same forbidden knowledge. There is no beginning and no end. The Bardo Thodol and modern psychedelic visions both reveal this dark enlightenment. That eternity doesn't stretch forward, it folds inward. He remembered a near-death survivor describing it best. It wasn't like going somewhere. It was like waking up somewhere I'd never left. That single sentence holds the essence of esoteric truth. The Bardo realm isn't waiting beyond the horizon. It's the fabric underneath your perception now. When you meditate, dream or love so deeply that you forget yourself, you touch it. The light of death flickers in every heartbeat. The astral realm isn't distant. It's embedded in the pixels of your awareness, shimmering between thoughts like static from another dimension. This realization transforms fear into reverence. To know you've already been there is to see death not as loss, but as recognition. The mystic initiation is complete the moment you stop searching for the other side, because the other side is this one, seen without filters. Tibetan mysticism calls it the clear light. Quantum mystics call it the unified field. Both mean the same. The Bardo Thodol wasn't written for the dead. It was written for the living who forgot where they are. You're not traveling through the Bardo. The Bardo is traveling through you. And so, the veil between worlds is thinner than breath. Every sound, every color, every pulse of thought is a message from the hidden dimensions. The pineal gland, DMT, opens the third eye, not to reveal something new, but to remind you what never left. The path of liberation is not ascension, but remembrance. The forbidden spirituality of Tibet, the Gnostic secrets, and modern DMT entities all say the same in different dialects of the infinite. You have always been eternal. You are only pretending to forget. Perhaps that's the final truth the Bardo Todol conceals in its poetry. Awakening is remembering, and remembering is awakening. You have crossed the Bardo realm countless times, in birth, in love, in despair, in silence. You've met the hidden masters, feared the shadow entities, and followed the light of death. And every time you return, the dream begins again, whispering, you have already been there. So if you feel the air shift as you read these words, don't be afraid. It only means the veil recognized you first. So now you know the veil isn't a wall, it's a mirror. The Bardo Todol wasn't written to comfort the dying, it was written to awaken the living. Death isn't waiting somewhere in the future. It's whispering through every moment, testing whether you remember who you are. The DMT entities, the machine elves, the shadow beings, they're not out there. They're reflections of your own higher consciousness, showing you what's hidden beneath the noise of daily life. You don't have to wait for the last breath to walk through the Bardo realm. You're walking through it right now. Maybe the real question isn't what happens after death, but what if you've never truly been alive? Every fear, every attachment, every illusion you dissolve brings you closer to that moment of recognition, the moment the light of death becomes the light of awareness. The Tibetan mystics called it liberation. Modern explorers call it ego death. Either way, it's the same awakening. The realization that the self you cling to was never yours. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. But what will you do with that knowledge? Will you keep chasing the illusion of control, or will you start recognizing the patterns as they appear in your life, your personal Bardo states? The arguments, the regrets, the distractions, every one of them is a smaller version of the same test. The path of liberation doesn't begin after you die. It begins the moment you stop running from truth. The next time fear rises, remember, it's just an entity of the beyond asking if you recognize it. Ask yourself this: if you died tonight, would you awaken or loop again? Would you walk through the light of death with clarity, or would you mistake it for heaven and start another cycle? That's the forbidden implication the world hides from you, that enlightenment isn't a gift, it's a decision. You can wake up right now, in this very breath. The Bardo experience starts the moment you realize you've been dreaming all along. If these words stirred something in you, if you felt the veil tremble for even a second, then it means you were meant to hear this. So stay curious, question everything. Read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, meditate on its symbols, and study your dreams. Because each night, when you close your eyes, you're already rehearsing eternity. And the only real question is, will you recognize yourself when the light appears? Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe death is an illusion? Have you ever experienced something that made you question reality itself? Share it in the comments. Your story might awaken someone else. And if you want to keep exploring the hidden dimensions, the forbidden spirituality, and the esoteric truths buried beneath everyday reality, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join this growing circle of seekers, because beyond every death there's a lesson, and beyond every lesson another awakening.